There's a lot of drama going on in the chess world right now because of Magnus Carlsen basically saying that Hans Niemann cheated against him in a match. There was one match that they played where Hans beat Magnus Carlsen, which was completely unexpected. And he played him again, played two moves, and then resigned and left the tournament because Hans was cheating, but he didn't directly say that, but he was saying that. But all of this has added up to a 9-figure lawsuit that Hans Niemann is going out for damages caused by this to his reputation, to him not being able to play in other events, because Magnus Carlsen basically said, if Hans Niemann is in this tournament, I'm not playing in it. He is the #1 player in the world in chess. So if you got to pick one or the other, you're probably going to pick #1. It's just going to bring more eyeballs to your tournament. But you might be asking yourself, how did Hans Niemann cheat against Magnus Carlsen, and why is there people on both sides? Because to prove that he's cheating is very difficult, and to prove that he's not is very difficult the same. Both ways, basically you can't prove it either way. But it started with a thread on Reddit talking about this because Magnus withdrew from the tournament, and people said that Hans Niemann was using anal beads with some sort of computerized program on it to help him make moves on the chessboard. And originally, I think that was a joke on Reddit, kind of someone just throwing it out there and saying, wow, what if this happened? And then it started just people running with that because it made the most amount of sense for whatever they check for. So people ran with it. It started being like a mainstream story, and it led to this now where we have a $100 million lawsuit. And we can look at that lawsuit right here. This says it's seeking $400 million in damages, but it's not quite like that. But this is the lawsuit right here. You know, Magnus Carlsen and Play Magnus and Play Magnus Group and Chess.com and Hikaru, they're all involved in this against Hans Niemann. And this is basically kind of the damages he's seeking. You can see A through G, but basically these are all going after kind of different people. So these all say like the same thing. First course of action, money judgment in favor of Neiman against defendants. Specific amount to be determined at trial, but not less than $100 million plus prejudgment interest. These are all kind of the same, except for D right here, where it says the same language, but it doesn't have 100 million put onto it. It's the specific amount to be determined at trial, but it's basically doesn't have an amount here of 100 million or no less than 100 million. And apparently, what people have been saying, and lawyers all over have been saying, that it's not a $400 million case. Like you can see, all four of these would be 400 million, but it would be 100 million, but trying to prove at least one, or if multiple get proved, it's still just 100 million. So really weird. And he picked 100 million out of a hat, I guess. Is pretty typical with defamation lawsuits, that you pick a high number to start high, and then whatever you can work down to is higher than what you hoped for. But 100 million is massive, mainly because 100 million is almost as much as the entire global online chess instruction and play market. They were valued at $151 million in 2021. So it is way more than the entire space that he was in. And saying to sue for that is kind of crazy. To say because you're not allowed in this space or something for 100 million is an insane dollar amount. If your almost entire market, I mean, you're not going to take over the whole market. So it is a crazy number. But again, probably starting up there for defamation purposes to work its way down to like 10 million, and he'd be happy with that. But maybe he gets zero because it is defamation. That's the hardest thing in the world to actually prove. And if we were to just look at the richest chess players of all time, this list, you can see number 10, 2 million, 3 million, 3 million, and it kind of works its way up all the way to number 1, to Hikaru, who is worth 50 million. So if you added up everyone here, it would be less than $100 million. So less than the top 10 most successful, most net worth chess players in the world. And Hans Niemann is suing for more than all of them combined. So the loss, the 100 million, is just something to look at and just think that's an insane number. That's probably too big of a number. We have Jake Lucky here too, who asked an actual lawyer for his thoughts and what he thought about the case. And you know, like every lawyer does who's not involved really, he's kind of picking both sides. He said yes and no and broke it down, but it does look like it could be a hard case for Hines to win. Just because of defamation for a public figure is not usually something that people really come down for.
Hey Jake, so for the sake of time, I'm going to skip any potential jurisdictional issues that I see and get straight to the heart of it. Do I think Hans Niemann has potential of winning this lawsuit? Well, yes and no. Embedded in this petition, I think there are some particularly weak claims, for instance, against Hikaru Nakamura. Hikaru is mostly a reactor. He's been reacting to the underlying statements made by Magnus and the reports of chess.com, and any original thoughts or statements he said on top of that were based on that foundation, especially if a court finds that Hans is a limited purpose public figure. He's basically going to have to prove that Hikaru knew those statements were false by chess.com and by Magnus, yet he made them anyway. I think those claims are weak at best. Now, pivoting to Magnus and chess.com, I think these claims could actually have some teeth. Even if Magnus hasn't come out and expressly said Hans is a cheater, he certainly implied it. And there's something in the law called defamation by implication. Now, Magnus and chess.com haven't come out with any definite proof that Hans cheated. So, where does this leave us? Well, if you're Hans, you've basically been exiled from the chess world. You can't play on chess.com. You can't compete in any of the big tournaments. So the damages are potentially huge. So discovery in this case is going to be everything. It's going to make or break Hans's claim, but on its face, there is potential for him to prevail.
So basically 2 parts there. The case against Hikaru, almost non-existent. Going to be basically impossible to try and prove that he knew that the statements were false and made his own statements anyways. You're not going to prove that. Against Magnus and chess.com, maybe as a case there, just like he says. But either way, it's going to be difficult to prove either side. So it's going to be a difficult lawsuit. And the $100 million figure is still the outlier there, where that's massive. That is a ridiculous sum of money. For this lawsuit too, though, apparently he's doing it in Missouri. I think that state, he's doing it there, which is kind of weird and out of the blue. I mean, nobody in the case is from Missouri. It didn't take place in Missouri. I don't think the tournament was in Missouri, so it's weird. But Missouri court does allow cameras in, so maybe we get a whole nother live stream of a lawsuit and get to watch all this unfold live and see what happens. So a little bit of chess drama there, $100 million chess drama, this lawsuit. I mean, we'll see what it has legs. If he wins all 100 million, I'd be shocked, and that would be massive. I mean, he would win almost as much money as the entire space that he was in is worth. So it'd be kind of crazy, but we'll see. Maybe we get a live stream of this whole court case and get to see them fight for that 100 million. That's gonna do it for this video. As always, don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe. We're to 1,000 subscribers, and see you guys in my next video.